Hey everyone, Ridden here, and thank you for coming. And today, we're going to be taking a deeper look at episode 7 of season 1 of Marvel Studios' WandaVision. Welcome back everyone, and thank you for coming. And after another week of rampant speculation, the time has finally come for us to return to the world of Westview. So let's get to it.
Previously on WandaVision.
In this week's episode, we start off with Wanda in bed, reaching over to realize that Vision isn't beside her, and hilariously, she narrates how we've all been there, acknowledging her prior day's actions of expanding the borders of Westview. No, Wanda, we haven't all been there exactly. The kids come upstairs to tell her that their game is freaking out, hopping through the decades and generations of gaming, from GameCube to Atari, and ultimately landing on Uno. Billy also says that his head feels weird, which is most likely related to his empathic and telepathic powers manifesting further. We see Wanda here still in her retro outfit worn the night of, so this is only a day later. And did you guys notice the hex is on the comforter in Vision's pillow, but not Wanda's? As Wanda makes her way to the kitchen to make herself some cereal, we also see another shot here on the back of the milk carton for a missing kid. This is also something we've seen recently in set photo leaks from the upcoming Spider-Man 3 film, which in terms of chronology happens a few months to a year after the events of WandaVision. So are we to have the understanding that Wanda is responsible for the missing children later on? Or could the events of Westview be the beginning of whatever subplot continues on in Spider-Man 3 with the missing children?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that's about.
When she says she doesn't know what that is about, we're assuming she means the glitching back and forth of the reality we see. But she could be talking about our missing child. This week's episode leans heavily on the office / modern family style of presentation, and our new intro captures the now separation it would seem Wanda and Vision are experiencing, as all of our shots here only mention Wanda. We're all for Wanda. A stark contrast to intros of the past few weeks that were very family oriented, as she later tells the boys if Vision doesn't want to be there, there's nothing she can do about it. And as our title screen lands, we get a nice created by Wanda Maximoff line here for anyone who was unsure or unaware that it was all Wanda's doing. All of this is really the writers landing on thick that it's all Wanda. After a brief moment back at the new response base, we learn from Hayward and another agent that the television signal is now gone, and that whatever plan he has, he's launching today, before we're then shepherded back inside the anomaly to a now awakening Vision. Having been turned into circus companions, we now see Darcy and all the rest of the Sword agents in their new roles as Vision happens upon them. It would seem Darcy has taken on the role of an escape artist, which is just a cool nod to the fact that she was literally trying to escape her restraints when she was brought into the Hex. The initial interaction between Vision and Darcy was just as great as I expected it to be.
You don't remember me from last night? We locked eyes. There was a unspoken understanding.
Seeing Sword agents here now all integrated as clowns was also very satisfying. And it says a lot about what Wanda truly thinks about them, as she turned the entirety of their response base and everyone on it into a circus act. Vision awakens Darcy, and after skipping out on their performance slots, they hit the road heading back to Vision's home in Westview, before which Vision asks Darcy questions that it would seem have been weighing on him heavily, as in, are his kids safe, and who is that imposter Pietro? On the road trip, Darcy basically brings Vision up to date on all things that preceded the Hex. This was a very cool plot choice for me, as we get to see Vision begin to understand how traumatizing this all must have been for Wanda, having to watch him die twice and having to deal with it all on her own. And when they make it to the four-way crossing, Vision then tells Darcy that this is just Wanda trying to keep him away, as obstacles in the form of power company employees and children block Vision and Darcy's path. Which begs the question, why would Wanda want to keep him away? Maybe someone else does. But eventually, Vision decides he's had enough and takes off. Back at home, our story now continues with Billy asking Wanda about what Uncle Pietro said about Vision being re-killed. If you hadn't taken notice yet, Pietro hasn't been around this episode, as it would seem Wanda dismissed him just like she did Geraldine the day prior. I love that the show has continued to have the kids wear colors reminiscent of their comic outfit colorways. Wanda then tells the kids that Pietro is in fact not their uncle, and that she doesn't have all the answers that they are expecting from her, as Wanda's mental, it would seem, continues to deteriorate. The Modern Family presentation style was perfect for this episode, as having Wanda's cut out perspective comments, her character singles, really added to the charm of the show.
Okay, so maybe I went a little too dark there. Vision is made of vibranium. They literally inherited tough skin.
Then Agnes appears, offering to take the kids off Wanda's hands so she can have a breather. I don't know about how you all came up, but my folks weren't the kind of parents to just send their kids off. But that could be indicative of them not being trustworthy of others or something. But I thought this was a bit weird, how quickly Wanda was willing to ship the kids off. Couple of things to note. I did think it was funny how Agnes said she doesn't bite, but then that, well,
I actually did bite a kid once.
following that up with asking Wanda if she could take a look at a suspicious mole on her back. This scene to me was very key, as in, if Agnes is in fact Agatha Harkness, the mole on her back would mean much more. In the comics, Agatha Harkness is over 10,000 years old and was in Salem during the witch trials, a time period during which birthmarks, moles, warts, skin tags, or supernumerary nipples were assumed to be witches' marks. So I felt that this was just the writers nodding their heads at us, prodding us a bit. Or I could be tripping. We continue to see Wanda's reality glitching out around her. One of the funniest moments of the episode is during one of her character singles where she's talking about not understanding what's going on, and the interviewer asks her,
"Do you think maybe this is what you deserve?"
Which shocks Wanda, as it doesn't seem the interviewer is supposed to talk, as there really isn't anyone there. It's just Wanda sitting in her living room talking to no one, narrating what's going on with her in the episode.
I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine.
And if you didn't know already, Wanda definitely isn't fine. We didn't get our commercial of the week, and we see the return of the same actors from all of the commercials prior to last week's Yo Magic ad. This week's ad is for Nexus, which is for if you're feeling depressed, as if the world is going on without you. The bed scene where she's laying down was pretty cool, as she then simply walks away. This commercial to me seemed like a direct indication that maybe we'll see Doctor Strange at some point, calling it an antidepressant that works to anchor you back to your reality, and that you shouldn't take it unless your doctor has cleared you to move on with your life.
What is your job exactly besides making balloon animals?
Protecting your reality, douchebag.
And as the term Nexus is usually used to mean the seed of magic, the actual name of the medicine is an Easter egg in and of itself. The side effects were also just as revealing.
Side effects include feeling your feelings, confronting your truth, seizing your destiny, and possibly more depression.
Because the world doesn't revolve around you.
Or does it?
So then we actually get to see the kids inside of Agnes's home. Our first time being here in the entire show. I was personally excited because I was really hoping to get our Ralph revealed, as I do suspect her husband will eventually be revealed to be whatever higher cosmic power Agnes could be serving.
Penny for your thoughts.
Here Agnes continues to display the fact that she is somehow tied into all of this, prodding Billy here about his powers that she somehow just happens to know about. And when Billy responds, he says he likes it here as it's quiet, and that Agnes herself is quiet on the inside. At this point in the show, I was pretty dead set on that Agnes was going to end up being the big bad like we all suspected, or at least the big bad of this season. Tommy then asks Agnes if she thinks their mom is okay, and for a brief moment we get a reaction from her that I couldn't discern on if it was disdain, concern, or maybe even fear.
Oh, you don't have to worry about your mom. She's super mom. Ralph says I sugarcoat things.
Also, did you pay attention to Agnes's character single? Did you notice the abundance of hexagons on her patterned sofa and how she's sitting on it whilst Wanda was under her hexagon pattern comforter? Then we finally get to the scene and characters I have been waiting for all episode, as we see Wu and Monica for the first time on their way to meet the aeronautical engineer mentioned in previous episodes. During the brief trip, Wu says Darcy managed to get through Hayward's last firewall, emailing them the info, and that under the codename Project Cataract, Hayward hadn't in fact been trying to decommission Vision at all, but instead he wanted to bring him back online. Nothing worked though until Wanda stole Vision's body, hence why Hayward was tracking him inside the Hex. Before we get any more dialogue between the two, they arrive at their destination. We've all been hoping that the engineer was in fact going to be Reed Richards, or maybe even Adam Brashear, who in the comics is an engineer whom Monica actually dated at one point, and who is also Blue Marvel, a superhero who has powers of antimatter energy absorption. He doesn't quite match up with who Monica is going to meet, as in the comics Adam is an electrical engineer, but the MCU has definitely adapted crazier origins, so I was still very hopeful. In reality, we actually got neither. I'm unsure yet of if it's been confirmed that Monica's point of contact was in fact Major Goodner, or if it was in fact the engineer and that Major Goodner is just the individual charged with getting the solution to Monica and the Hex. But this was a moment of another rampaging fan theory falling flat. We then see the heavily armored space rover that has been brought based off Monica's specs that she intends to use to re-enter Westview. Unfortunately, this doesn't work at all, as the Hex rejects the vehicle and tosses it out half integrated into the reality. During the process though, Monica realizes that she can in fact re-enter, and we get to see the origin of her powers within the MCU, it would seem, as she forces her way in, to the overture of voiceovers from the Captain Marvel movie, testifying to her will and strength of character. We see her split into all the different versions of herself, and when she reassembles on the other side, her eyes are glowing blue, and initially she can see the varying colors of the spectrum, until she blinks it away. Monica finally makes it to Wanda and Vision's home, bursting through the front door to the bewilderment of Wanda, who doesn't seem too happy about it. Before Monica actually makes her way inside though, I believe something very key is taking place. It looks like Wanda is actually taking Nexus, which is interesting, as who prescribed her with it? And is this the first time we've seen something from the commercials actually making its way into the show? We then see Wanda drive Monica out of the house and into the front yard, where we can see our mailman from last week, now a delivery man for Presto, as well as other neighbors stopped in their tracks watching the altercation. We even see Agnes watching her from her window. Wanda attempts to drive Monica out of the air into the ground, but we finally get the first showing of Monica's powers as she lands in a wave of blue energy and looks up with blue glowing eyes. Something that we can see visually shocks Wanda. And then we get the very cool standoff between the two as Monica tries to reason with her. And right when it seems like Monica is getting through to her, Agnes appears, telling her she's overstayed her welcome and leading Wanda away. And as they leave, we see the Presto delivery guy marching on right behind them. And finally, we got the big reveal we've been waiting for. Coming into this episode, there was tons of theories on the table about who the engineer Monica and Wu were going to meet would be, if Monica would eventually develop powers, and if we would finally find out who was behind it all. After being led away from the altercation with Monica by Agnes, we now see the two in Agnes's house. Wanda immediately notices that the kids aren't there and that their sandwiches are sitting half-eaten. She asks Agnes where they are, and she says they must be in the basement playing, which prompts Wanda to go and find them. This scene was everything for me, as we've all been high on the theory that Agnes was in fact Agatha Harkness. So as Wanda enters the basement and goes deeper inside as it transitions into somewhat of a lair, I already knew what was coming. And when Agnes finally introduces herself as Agatha Harkness, wearing her comic book brooch once again, she places Wanda back under her trance. And I can't say that I was surprised. I did take notice of her magic being distinctly purple, which is a great visual choice to distinguish between her magic and that of Wanda's powers. At least her penchant for purple now makes sense. And then we get the great montage of Agatha all along, showing her hand and involvement in everything within Westview leading up to now, including Pietro, ending with,
And I killed Sparky too.
This was awesome, and as I've said in prior reviews of the earlier episode, all of the red herrings leading up to this moment were all to put us on the scent of Wanda being a possible big bad at the end, only to pull the rug right from under us in this moment. Given Agatha's comic history and involvement with Wanda and Mephisto, it makes perfect sense. Now, a different set of questions arise for us, as in, where are the twins now? And who is Agatha working for? If she isn't doing all this herself, and how did she get the drop on Wanda in the first place? And if you were like me and stormed off when the nefarious Please Stand By made its return, you missed the post-credit scene, showing Monica continuing to look for Wanda, making her way to Agnes's house and the entrance to her basement, where we see vines and purple magic rippling below ground, only to see the return of Pietro when we turn back to Monica. So Quicksilver, or whoever Evan Peters is portraying, is working with Agnes. And if he is in fact meant to be Fox's incarnation of the character, to me that means there must be a larger interdimensional big bad somewhere behind the curtain, as although Agatha is strong in her witchcraft, I don't know if her abilities will allow her to pull a being across multiple realities into ours. I really enjoyed this week's episode, although I can understand why others may not have. While not jam-packed with action, this episode was incredibly necessary to move the plot forward, and having already laid several weeks of solid groundwork in terms of exposition and excitement, I believe the show has earned a slow week to do so. I would love to know what you thought about episode 7, so jump down in the comments and let me know your theories. I will of course be continuing to cover the show here weekly on my channel, and if you feel so inclined, I would love to have you back here next week to continue to cover it with us. Again, guys, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and click that bell for notifications if you've enjoyed our content here tonight. Jump down in the comments and let me know your thoughts. And while you're at it, be sure to check out some of the other content here on the channel. All of the necessary links are listed here below for you to keep up with the coming content and shareables. Please be sure to follow me on all social media platforms. Or just the one you use most frequently. We are slowly but surely building a community here, and I would personally love for you to be a part of that. And last but not least, we have a merch store. So whether you see something you like or just simply want to support the channel, head on over to our shop and grab something, or grab everything. But again, thank you so much, guys and gals, for visiting here with us today. I really appreciate each and every viewing minute of your time you've given us. There's loads of content we'll be sending your way, so I'll be seeing you. But for now, be blessed. And it was written.
Across the nighttime, the city sleep inside. Yeah.